The Zarthan Empire prepared for the biggest military event in its entire history. A show so grand, so expensive, so terrifying that even empires older than the Council sent their top observers, because this wasn't just any expo. This was the unveiling of the Titan-class battle Mechs, machines built to crush worlds, tear apart star fortresses, and stamp entire species out of existence, each one taller than mountains, each one carrying weapons forbidden in 3 galaxies, and the Zarthan generals had only one goal: make the humans finally feel fear. They didn't invite humans for diplomacy, they invited them to intimidate, to humiliate, to remind them that the galaxy still belonged to the old powers. But when the human delegation arrived, for soldiers, 2 engineers, and 1 pilot, they did not gasp, did not panic, did not even blink at the metal giants towering over them like angry gods. Instead, they walked in calmly, hands in pockets, looking around like tourists visiting a museum. And the Zarthans felt irritation crawling up their spines because humans were supposed to be shocked, terrified, overwhelmed. Yet they acted like people waiting in line at a theme park, whispering to each other, pointing at engines, making small jokes the translators couldn't keep up with, and the Zarthan Emperor himself clenched his jaw as he said, "Show them the Colossus 91. A command that made even the general step back nervously, because Colossus 91 wasn't just a mech. It was a walking supernova, a monster with armor made from neutron-forged alloy, a machine so powerful that it took 50 engineers, 10 pilots, and an entire nuclear facility just to activate it. The ground shook as the mech rose from its hangar, steam exploding outward as its engines roared to life, its massive arms carrying plasma furnaces capable of melting cities, its legs crushing steel as casually as stepping on sand, and the crowd of alien species gasped, some trembling, some hiding behind shield emitters, some stepping back out of pure instinctive terror, because the Colossus 91 wasn't designed for show, it was designed for extinction. The Emperor's voice boomed across the arena. Behold the weapon that even the ancient warlords feared, and every species stared at the humans, expecting them to scream, panic, or at least show some fear, but instead one human, Lieutenant Reed, tilted his head slightly like he was examining a toy in a store, squinted at the giant mech, then casually turned to the Zarthan director and asked, "Can we race them?" And for the first time in the long, brutal history of the Zarthan Empire, silence fell not from obedience or fear, but from pure shock, a silence so deep that even the mech's engines sounded quieter, as if reality itself paused to process the question. 3 nearby ambassadors choked on their drinks, a Zarthan guard dropped his rifle, 2 robotic drones stopped recording and rebooted themselves, and the Emperor blinked like someone had slapped him with a frozen fish. "Race?" the Emperor repeated, voice cracking for the first time in his reign. But Reed nodded seriously and said, "Yes, you have a track, right? Or do you want us to make one?" And that one sentence made every alien in the arena whisper in disbelief because the humans weren't joking. There was no fear in their eyes, only excitement, curiosity, and something far more dangerous. Confidence, and not the confidence of someone seeing a new weapon, but of someone seeing a new toy, something to push, break, challenge, and dominate. The Zarthan generals exchanged panicked glances, because they had spent centuries telling the galaxy that humans were unpredictable deathworlders, chaotic and dangerous, but even for them this was insane. No species had ever asked to race a battle mech, no species had ever treated a superweapon like a fun activity, and no species in their right mind thought these titanic monsters were suitable for competitions. Yet the humans stood there smiling, waiting, eager, like kids at the start of a go-kart race. The Emperor tried to regain control, clearing his throat and saying, "Humans, these machines are designed for war," but Reed shrugged and replied, "So are we," and the alien audience gasped again because the confidence in his voice wasn't arrogance, just truth. One of the human engineers stepped forward, studying the mech's leg hydraulics with a thoughtful expression, whispering, "The joint actuators look slow, maybe 3 seconds lag? Weird design choice." And another human poked the mech's armor and said, "Why is the cooling system external? That's asking for overheating." And the Zarthan engineers almost fainted because humans had analyzed and critiqued their most advanced war machine in less than 30 seconds, something their own experts took 40 years to perfect. The Emperor's frustration cracked through his calm facade as he barked, "These machines require elite pilots, decades of training, neural fusion, reflex enhancers. But human pilot Zara just smiled and said, "So do we." Stepping closer to the giant mech with a sparkle in her eye like she had just found her soulmate, and the alien species watching felt a cold shiver crawl through their bodies because humans were supposed to fear the Colossus 91. Yet they spoke to it like an equal. The Emperor snapped, "These machines melt mountains. They destroy fleets." And Reed replied casually, "Cool, but how fast can they go?" And the entire arena went into meltdown. Aliens whispering frantically, ambassadors in panic, engineers clutching their data pads, soldiers preparing medics because someone was about to faint, and in the middle of that chaos, the humans stayed calm. They walked around the Colossus 91, inspecting it like mechanics at a repair shop, touching its armor, climbing onto its foot, checking thrusters, making notes, and the mech, this terrifying world-killing juggernaut, stood, perfectly still, towering over them like a god looking down on ants, yet somehow looking smaller than them at the same time. When Reed finished inspecting it, he looked at Zara and said with a grin, "It'll be fun. Might flip at corners though." And Zara nodded, adding, "I can handle it, as long as the brakes don't suck." And this time a Zarthan general actually collapsed to the ground because no one in their entire species had ever said the word brakes. While standing next to a mech designed to vaporize planets, one ambassador whispered, "Deathworlders? They are worse than the legends?" While another whispered, "They are playing?" And a third whispered, "Why aren't they afraid?" But the real question wasn't why humans weren't afraid. The real question was why the Mechs seemed to like them. Sensors around the arena picked up anomalous data. Colossus 91's neural core was responding, syncing, reaching out, and that terrified the Zarthans more than anything, because no alien had ever gotten close to activating that dormant connection. The Emperor finally snapped, shouting, "Stop touching it!" But humans didn't stop. They stepped back only when the mech itself lowered slightly, almost like it was bowing, shocking every single witness. The Emperor panicked and ordered a hard shutdown, screaming, "Deactivate it! Shut it down now! They are awakening the core!" And sparks showered the arena as engineers scrambled to cut power, alarms screaming warnings, robotic arms clamping down on the mech. But even while shutting down, the Colossus 91 sensors flickered toward the humans, scanning them, memorizing them, as if recognizing something it had never seen before. Pilots worthy of its power. The humans stood there smiling, unaware of the chaos they had unleashed, unaware that the galaxy was now terrified of what they might do next, unaware that every species watching now understood why humans were feared in ancient legends. Because humans didn't react to danger with fear. They reacted with excitement. And as the alarms died down and the mech powered off, Reed looked at the Emperor, wiped dust off his hands and said, "So, about that race?" And the Emperor felt a cold wave rush through his heart because in that moment he realized something horrifying. He had shown humans the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. And their first instinct wasn't to study it, steal it, or fear it. Their first instinct was to make it go faster. And that was far more terrifying than war. The moment the humans asked to race the Colossus 91, the entire Zarthan military expo fell into a panic so intense that even the automated security drones froze mid-flight as if confused by the request, and the alien spectators whispered in terror and disbelief while the Emperor himself stood rigid, unable to understand how a species could look at a world-destroying war machine and think of a sporting event. But the humans were already moving again, circling the mech like excited engineers at a car show, touching panels, checking joints, smiling at each other like kids who had just been shown a new playground. And this casual excitement shattered every expectation the Zarthans had carefully built over decades of propaganda. One general whispered, "This is wrong, humans should not be calm," while another trembled, "Why are they smiling? Why do they smile at weapons?" And yet the answer was simple. Humans weren't smiling at the danger, they were smiling at the challenge. As the humans examined the mech, Zara placed her hand on its armor, and a soft hum rippled through the machine's neural circuits, causing half the engineers to scream and jump back, because the mech had reacted to her touch, something it had never done even with its own pilots. The sensors flickered with new life, scanning her, syncing with her heartbeat, adjusting its dormant systems, and the Emperor shouted for technicians to lock it down. But the machine ignored them, focusing instead on the humans as though recognizing something familiar. something dangerous, something worthy. The Zarthan crowd, terrified, pressed against the safety barriers, their bodies shaking as the humans continued analyzing the Mech's internal systems as if nothing strange was happening. Reed crouched near one of the Mech's thruster ports, wiping dust from its frame, with a cloth from his pocket, muttering, "This thing needs tuning. Who designed these inefficient airflow vents?" And the engineers nearly fainted because not only did he understand their technology instantly, he insulted it with the casual ease of someone dismissing a child's drawing, and that insult cut deeper than any plasma strike. Meanwhile, human engineer Nora observed the Mech's energy core, tapping on her tablet, whispering, "If they released 30% more pressure from the support pistons, it might break the sound barrier." And that line alone caused a Zarthan general to scream into his comm, "Sound barrier? This machine isn't even supposed to move above tactical speed." But the humans ignored the panic rising around them, fascinated by the Mech's design but even more fascinated by its limitations, which they fully intended to break. As technicians fought to regain control over the Colossus 91, alarms blared across the arena, warning that the Mech's neural core was detecting unregistered pilot signatures, and that phrase sent terror down the spines of every alien present because it meant the Mech had chosen them, not through programming, but through instinct, recognizing the humans as viable operators. A phenomenon believed impossible. The Emperor's voice cracked as he shouted, "Deactivate the machine now. Humans, step back. Step away." But the humans didn't step away. They stepped closer, and the Mech lowered slightly, its 800-ton body shifting with the grace of something alive, drawing gasps from thousands of aliens because it wasn't bowing. It was preparing to follow orders. The humans exchanged confused glances, not knowing the weight of what had just happened, and Zara casually said, "Ah, look, it likes us," while the alien species screamed internally, because liking them meant the Mech recognized them as warriors strong enough to bond with, and such bonding was legendary, catastrophic, dangerous beyond measure. Suddenly, a group of Zarthan guards rushed in, surrounding the humans with shock rifles raised, shouting, "Step away from the weapon!" But Reed only raised an eyebrow, hands still in his pockets, and replied coolly, "Weapon? We're treating it like a race car." And that one sentence made half the guards lower their rifles out of sheer confusion because nobody in their history had ever called a Titan-class mech a car. The Emperor, shaking now, finally found his voice and snarled, "These machines can crush continents. They are born from war?" And Zara grinned, replying, "So are we." And that answer rippled through the arena like a shockwave. Stories of human soldiers on Death World Earth, surviving jungles, deserts, blizzards, oceans, flooded the minds of the alien audience, making them remember that humans weren't running from danger. They evolved in it, played in it, mastered it, and now they stood before the greatest weapon the galaxy ever made and asked to push it harder. As technicians slammed emergency, lock buttons, sparks rained from the Mech's joints, the entire machine shuddering as if resisting the shutdown, wanting to move, wanting to run, wanting to race, and the Emperor's fear deepened because it was reacting not to commands but to desire. Their desire, human desire, the most unpredictable force in the universe. As the shutdown completed, the Mech powered down with a heavy sigh, its glowing eyes dimming, the ground vibrating with its reluctant rest. And for a long, terrifying moment, nobody spoke. Finally the Emperor whispered, voice hoarse, Why would you want to race a weapon of war?" And Reed gave the simplest, most horrifying human answer imaginable. "Because it looks fun." And the entire arena erupted into chaos. Panicked screams, shocked gasps, soldiers running, ambassadors fainting, engineers cursing, drones malfunctioning, and through it all the humans stood there, confused but amused, unaware that their one simple request had rewritten the galaxy's understanding of human nature. A Zarthan historian whispered, trembling, They do not fear destruction. They play with it." And an ambassador added, "They look at danger and see entertainment." And a third whispered the line that would soon spread across every world. "How do you defeat a species that treats your deadliest weapons like toys?" And no one had an answer. As security escorted the humans out of the active zone, the Colossus 91 flickered back to life for a moment, one single heartbeat of neural energy, acknowledging them, almost calling out to them, and Reed glanced back with a small grin, whispering, "Next time we're definitely racing." And the Mech's inner sensors pulsed once, like a promise, before shutting down again, leaving the galaxy trembling, because the humans had not shown fear. They had shown hunger for challenge, curiosity for danger, and excitement for the impossible, and every species watching understood something terrifying. Humans didn't want war. The next morning, before the suns rose over the Zarthan Desert Basin, the entire military expo was already in chaos because word had spread faster than hyperspace signals that the humans wanted to race the Titan-class battle Mechs, and the galaxy had responded with panic, disbelief, and morbid excitement. Thousands of aliens gathered outside the arena gates, pushing and shouting, demanding to witness the madness, while news drones hovered in clouds, broadcasting every rumor and every shaky image of the humans walking confidently through the Mech hangars as if they belonged there. And inside the command center, Zarthan generals argued with each other, slamming data pads, pointing at holograms, terrified that allowing humans near the Mechs again would spark a galactic crisis. But the Emperor didn't care about politics anymore. He just wanted to avoid a disaster. So he ordered the humans restricted to observation only, no touching, no approaching, no activation. But when he walked into the arena to deliver the rule, he stopped dead in his tracks because the humans were already inside the cockpit of 3 different Mechs, laughing, adjusting seats, recalibrating controls, and somehow overriding security barriers that were supposed to be impossible to break. Technicians were begging them to stop, shouting, "You cannot interface with the neural chair. It could kill you." But Zara, sitting relaxed inside the Colossus 91's cockpit, grinned and said, "We've ridden worse things." While her neural readings showed complete sync, something no Zarthan pilot had ever achieved without years of painful training. The technicians stared at the impossible readings, whispering in terror, "Humans are naturally bonding with the Mech. This should not be possible. No species should bond instantly." Yet the humans were not only bonding, they were enhancing the system, their neural patterns accelerating the Mech's response time, cleaning corrupted circuits, stabilizing weapon arrays, and the Mech seemed to hum with happiness like a beast finally meeting a worthy rider. When the Emperor approached, ready to shout, ready to shut everything down, Reed raised a hand politely and said, "We already ran diagnostics. She's ready?" And the Emperor stuttered, unable to understand how humans had bypassed layers of security meant for elite warriors. But before he could argue, the ground trembled as the Mech slowly powered up, their engines roaring with a sound so deep it shook clouds from the sky, and the crowd outside went wild as screen projectors lit up the valley-sized racetrack constructed for speed tests, not races, and the reality settled in. The race was happening whether the Emperor wanted it or not. Human engineers worked side by side with terrified Zarthan technicians, tightening bolts, adjusting thrusters, boosting power output, while Reed adjusted the Mech stabilizers with a wrench as if tuning a motorcycle, and the aliens could only watch, speechless, as he improved the machine they considered divine. When the Mechs walked out onto the track, every alien in the stands flinched, grabbing onto railings, covering their heads, because the sight of 3 Titan-class Mechs stepping forward, in perfect synchronization with humans inside them, was something no one in galactic history had ever seen, and the sound of their footsteps echoed like thunder across the desert. Holographic commentators stuttered through their shock, announcing, "For the first time ever, humans will attempt to race weapons of mass destruction." And even the council ambassadors watching via holofeed felt sick, some whispering, "This is madness. This is suicide." While others muttered, "This is humanity." And deep in the stands, ordinary aliens clutched their children, afraid the humans would lose control and flatten the entire arena. But inside the cockpit, Zara didn't feel fear. She felt pure joy, her hands gripping the control sticks like she had been born to fly a mountain made of metal, her heartbeat steady as she whispered to the Mech, "Let's see what you can really do." And the Mech responded with a soft vibration, a connection that pulsed through the neural link like trust. Reed flexed his fingers and cracked his neck, sliding into the pilot's seat with a relaxed smile as he muttered, "If this thing handles like it looks, we're breaking records today." And Vale, in the smallest of the 3 Mechs, strapped himself in upside down first as a joke, laughing when the Mech's safety system flipped him upright automatically, its AI almost sounding offended. The Emperor stood before them one last time, pale, shaking, desperately shouting into the loudspeakers. "This is not a racetrack. These machines are not for entertain." But he was cut off by the human pilot trio shouting in unison, "Ready!" And their voices shook the arena more than the Mechs ever had. The countdown initiated. 10, 9, 8. And every alien took a step back, some praying, some crying, some recording their last moments, because if the humans lost control, the entire arena would vaporize under the power of 3 Titan-class Mechs. 3, 2, and inside the cockpits the humans grinned, adrenaline surging, hearts sinking with the machines, instincts sharpening into something ancient and unstoppable. 1, and the moment the starting signal blared, every shield, every camera, every sensor in the arena was blinded by the blast of raw power as the 3 Mechs launched forward with a speed that violated physics, dust exploding into massive storms, the ground tearing open under the force of their acceleration, and thousands of aliens screamed. Not from danger but from pure shock, because Mechs that normally walked like giants had just sprinted like wild animals freed from cages, and the dust cleared just in time for the entire crowd to witness a sight burned into history forever. The humans were laughing, drifting 200-ton machines around corners, manipulating balance like dancers controlling gravity, spinning across the cliff-edge curves with insane precision, jumping canyons that were never meant to be jumped, racing side by side while engines screamed with joy and terror, and the entire galaxy watching from orbit slowly realized the truth. Humans weren't just racing. Humans were teaching the Mechs how to RUN as the 3 Titan-class Mechs thundered deeper into the canyon track, their massive steps shaking the planet like metal beasts freed from ancient chains. The Zarthan crowds could barely comprehend the insanity unfolding before them, because the Mechs were no longer moving at the safe, tactical speed their race was designed for. They were pushing past every safety limit, every design barrier, every warning ever written into their systems. Their armor, glowing red from heat, their joints spitting sparks, their internal reactors screaming for mercy. Yet the humans inside them only laughed harder, tightening their grips on the control sticks as if daring the machines to break, and the galaxy watching felt their hearts stop as the human pilot Zara drifted the Colossus 91 sideways around a cliff wall, a maneuver so impossible that the Mech stabilizers howled, metal limbs grinding against stone as she swung the giant frame around with the grace of a fighter jet, shouting joyfully, "W, this thing can turn," while thousands of aliens screamed in horror. Reed, piloting the second Mech, launched off a natural ramp of rock, soaring through the air with the full 800 tons of machinery twisting like a gymnast, dust exploding behind him as he landed so hard the shockwave knocked out every camera drone within a half-mile radius. And when Vale saw that, he yelled across the comms, "BT, you can't do it again," and Reed responded by boosting his thrusters even harder, sending a plume of blue fire across the valley as his Mech took off like a living comet. Inside the command center, Zarthan generals watched in paralyzed shock as readout screens overloaded one after another, flashing red warnings. Thermal core critical, hydraulic failure, structural limit exceeded. But for humans these warnings were nothing but suggestions, challenges, invitations to push further, and the Mechs obeyed them, as though thrilled to finally move the way they were born to. The Emperor clutched, his chest trembling, whispering, "They will kill themselves. They will kill us all. These machines were not made for this madness." But his voice drowned beneath the roar of engines as Zara's Mech vaulted over a ridge, landing in a perfect sideways slide that kicked up a tidal wave of sand, her Mech's thrusters firing in precise bursts as if reacting to her heartbeat, syncing with her wild instinct like an animal bonded to its rider. The alien commentators were speechless, their voices cracking as they tried to narrate what they could not understand, shouting things like, "The humans are not piloting the Mechs, they are merging with them," and "This should not be physically possible." Meanwhile, inside Reed's cockpit, the internal temperature reached levels that should have killed any pilot, but the human only wiped sweat from his forehead, grinning harder, muttering, "Come on, don't slow down on me," and the Mech's core pulsed in response, stabilizing itself as if fueled by Reed's excitement, and the tech teams monitoring the core fainted one by one because the Mech's AI was adapting itself to him, rewriting battle protocols in real time, becoming faster, smarter, more dangerous, and all because a human dared it to be. Vale, in the lightest mech, pushed it to the absolute brink, launching himself into a spiraling jump that tilted the entire machine backward, its legs folding in a way nobody had ever programmed, the AI screaming warnings humans ignored, and when he landed, the mech skidded sideways across the stone, claws digging trenches so deep the ground shook like an earthquake, and the alien children watching in the stands cried and covered their eyes, terrified the humans would die, while their parents whispered, "This is who they really are. This is why their world forged them into monsters." Yet their voices trembled with awe, not hatred. Suddenly the ground ruptured as an unexpected rock collapse unfolded ahead, a section of the canyon track, disintegrating into a sinkhole that swallowed boulders like a black hole, and the alien crowd gasped, certain the humans would finally panic. This was death, unavoidable, catastrophic. But instead Zara leaned forward, eyes sharpening with primal focus, and shouted into the comms, "Jump it!" And the two men shouted back, "On it!" in perfect unplanned synchronization. There was no time to calculate speed, no time to plan trajectory, no time to consider consequences, yet all three humans reacted. Without hesitation, slamming the thrusters to maximum, engines screaming like dying stars, sparks exploding from every joint, and the three Titan Mechs launched into the air side by side like colossal arrows fired from the bow of insanity itself. The galaxy held its breath as the machines soared, slow-motion giants suspended above a bottomless pit, metal bodies glowing molten red, every screw and bolt pushed beyond physics, and as the Mechs crossed the gap, barely clearing the collapsing canyon floor, Zara laughed so loudly it echoed through the Mech's engines. Reed hooped wildly, Vale shouted, "We're insane!" And the aliens watching finally understood the truth. Humans weren't fearless because they lacked danger. They were fearless because their entire evolution had been built on surviving it, outrunning it, laughing at it. The Mechs smashed back onto solid ground with explosions of dust and fire, landing hard enough to send shockwaves that rolled across the valley like tidal waves. And for a moment no one could see anything. The world was covered in smoke, dust, and shimmering plasma residue. But then the dust cleared just enough for the arena screens to show three silhouettes sprinting through the haze, engines roaring, thrusters blazing, their bodies still intact, still moving, still racing. In the command center, a Zarthan engineer broke down sobbing, whispering, "They broke every limit, every warning, every law of physics, and the machines still obey." And another whispered in terror, "What happens when they stop racing and start fighting?" But no one dared answer. The Emperor himself slumped into his throne, weak, defeated, gripping his head as he stared at the racing humans and muttered, "We built weapons to end worlds, but they found joy in them. What kind of species treats extinction machines like entertainment?" And as the three Mechs barreled toward the final stretch, engines glowing like miniature suns, a horrifying, beautiful truth settled over the entire galaxy. The Mechs weren't built to race, but the humans were born to. The valley shook like a living creature waking from a nightmare as the three Titan-class Mechs exploded out of the canyon and onto the open desert plain, their engines howling like thunder trapped inside metal cages, and the entire galaxy watched in frozen silence because what the humans were doing was no longer just a race. It was domination of a technology no alien had dared to challenge, domination of machines meant only for war, yet now moving with the joy and wild freedom of creatures unshackled. And the Zarthan officials in the command tower were losing their minds as every diagnostic screen flashed bright red with catastrophic warnings. Reactors overheating, stabilizers failing, coolant levels dropping to zero, armor melting from friction alone. But inside the cockpits the humans didn't flinch. Zara's mech shook violently under her grip, internal alarms screaming at her that the thermal limit had been crossed 5 minutes ago, yet she only smirked and said, "Come on, girl, don't quit on me now." And, unbelievably, the mech's core responded, pushing more power into its legs as if fueled by her determination, as if the machine itself refused to disappoint her. Reed's mech staggered from the force of pushing beyond its maximum velocity, sparks bursting from its knee joints, metal plates peeling away from its chest like burning leaves. But Reed only laughed, wiping sweat from his forehead while muttering, "Hold together, big guy, just a little more." And the mech obeyed him, not through programming but through something deeper, connection. And Vale, piloting the smallest mech, was practically vibrating with excitement as he fired every microthruster at once, causing the mech to skate across the sand in a sideways drift so extreme that the alien spectators screamed and covered their eyes, certain he would flip and die, but Vale only screamed, "YHHHH." As the mech corrected itself mid-slide, its AI adapting to his chaos, stabilizing a maneuver its designers never even imagined. Meanwhile, every alien broadcast channel across the galaxy had switched to the race, commentators screaming in confusion, scientists crying because the data made no sense, politicians panicking because humans were rewriting military power in real time, and ordinary civilians watching with wide eyes whispered to each other. This is why Deathworlders are feared. They don't follow our logic, they follow their own. And for the first time in centuries, alien species who had never seen humans before understood just how terrifyingly adaptable they were. Inside the arena, the Emperor could barely breathe as he watched the Mechs accelerate beyond what should be possible, beyond what physics allowed, beyond what his engineers ever dreamed, and he whispered brokenly, "The Mechs, they're awakening, because of them?" And the chief Zarthan engineer fell to his knees, shaking as he said, "They're not piloting the Mechs, they're unlocking them," which sent waves of horror through every commander listening because these machines were never meant to unlock. Only ancient warlords from long-lost ages could access their full potential. Yet 3 humans had done so within minutes. The ground burst open in front of Zara, a massive molten crack tearing across the desert floor from the insane heat radiating from the Mech's reactors. But instead of slowing, she shifted her weight, leaned back, and launched over it in a jump so massive the Mech's shadow covered half the track. Dust, swirling around her like storm clouds, and the crowd roared in disbelief as she landed with a bone-shaking crash that sent a cloud of sand flying so high it blocked out the sun. Reed, refusing to be outdone, triggered a manual override, forcing his mech to engage a hidden speed mode that even the Zarthans had forgotten existed, and when the thrusters ignited, a shock wave erupted so violently that the viewing platforms rattled and hundreds of spectators fainted from the sound. Yet Reed only laughed and said, "That's what I'm talking about." And his mech surged forward like a runaway starship on legs. Vale, seeing both pilots pushing limits that should never be touched, screamed into the comms, "Okay, let's get stupid," and triggered a maneuver no mech manual had ever described. He folded the mech's legs inward, engaged reverse thrusters at full burn, flipped the entire machine backward into a 360-degree aerial spin, and landed facing the opposite direction, still running forward, because of thruster force, and the whole galaxy collectively screamed, unable to understand how he wasn't dead. Xenobiologists watching commented, trembling, "Humans have something wrong in their brains, this thrill response, it's unnatural." While human scientists watching from Earth eating popcorn whispered proudly, "No, this is exactly right, because while other species avoided danger, humans chased it, danced with it, lived in it." The Zarthan Emperor slammed his fist against the railing, shouting, "Stop them! Stop this madness!" But there was no way to stop them. The Mechs were too fast, too hot, too synced with their pilots, and the humans were too determined, too stubborn, too thrilled to care about limits. As the 3 Mechs entered the final stretch, engines glowing white-blue, sand turning to glass under their feet, every alien in the arena realized a horrible truth. Humans didn't fear the machines because they were the machines, unstoppable, unpredictable, and driven by a thrill that bordered on divine madness. The last corner approached, a sharp turn designed to slow even military vehicles to a crawl, but the humans didn't slow. They sped up, pushing into the turn with suicidal confidence, the Mechs tilting so far sideways that their arms scraped the ground, sparks spraying like waterfalls of fire, and the aliens screamed because this was no longer a race, it was insanity wearing a metal skeleton, and somehow humans excelled at it. The 3 Mechs burst out of the final turn almost neck and neck, engines roaring like dragons locked in battle, and for a moment, just a single, breathtaking moment, the galaxy saw what humans truly were. Not conquerors, not warmongers, not reckless fools, but beings who pushed every boundary because their hearts demanded it, beings who challenged even extinction machines and made them better, beings who treated fear as fuel and danger as a game. And as the finish line approached, dust exploding behind them, metal gleaming like blue fire, and the entire universe holding its breath, Every alien understood one terrifying truth that would haunt them forever. Humans didn't race to win. Humans raced to see how far they could go, and nothing in the galaxy could keep up. As the three Titan-class Mechs thundered toward the final stretch, their metal frames glowing white-hot like living stars on the edge of collapse, the entire arena shook with fear because every alien watching realized that the humans weren't slowing down, weren't stopping, weren't even thinking about survival. If anything, they were speeding up, pushing the machines beyond every number written in the manuals, and the sensors monitoring the race started to fail one by one. Screens flickering, wires melting, technicians screaming as warning after warning flashed across their consoles. Core fissure imminent, critical pressure overload, reactor death cascade. But the humans acted like they couldn't hear any of it, their adrenaline drowning out every alarm, their instincts overriding every sane thought, and the Mechs responded like loyal beasts driven to madness by their riders. Engines roaring with defiance, legs slamming the earth so violently that the ground cracked open behind them like shattered glass, sending tremors across the valley. Zara leaned forward inside the cockpit of the Colossus 91, her eyes narrowed with wild excitement, sweat pouring down her face as she felt the mech begging for release, begging to go faster even as its armor plates turned red from heat, and she whispered, "Just hold on a little longer, girl, we're almost there." And the neural link between her and the machine surged with an emotional pulse that tech analysts had never seen in any mech. Almost like affection. Almost like the machine was trying to protect her even while tearing itself apart. Reed, inside his mech, was laughing so hard tears streamed down his cheeks, his hands gripping the controls like a man possessed, shouting, "Come on, big guy, show them what you got." And the mech's energy core responded like thunder trapped in a metal heart, sending shockwaves through its limbs, boosting its speed to a level that caused entire rows of spectators to faint from the sight alone. Vale, piloting the lightest mech, was a blur of madness and thrill, performing insane maneuvers even in the final stretch, shifting balance between foot thrusters and arm stabilizers so quickly that he was practically surfing across the desert floor, shouting, through laughter, "If we explode, it's worth it?" And even his mech seemed to laugh back, its internal systems vibrating like it understood the joke. Meanwhile, in the command tower, the Zarthan Emperor had stopped shouting entirely, now reduced to a trembling, pale shadow as he watched power readings spike to levels beyond comprehension, whispering, "This is impossible. No machine can survive this. No pilot should survive this." And beside him, the chief engineer whispered back, "They're not piloting the machines anymore. They're redefining them." And those words made the Emperor weak in the knees, because it meant the humans were not just controlling the Mechs, they were changing them forever, unlocking potential no Zarthan had ever reached. Suddenly the ground erupted as Reed's mech hit such velocity that its back thrusters ignited into a fireball, flames shooting out like the tail of a comet, and entire spectator stands shook violently as the mech broke some unknown speed. Threshold, sand liquefying under its feet, turning to molten glass that reflected the blue fire screaming from its engines. Zara's mech began shedding armor plates from pure friction, chunks of supermetal flying off like meteors, each piece crashing into the sand with explosive force. Yet she didn't slow down, didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, her voice trembling with emotion as she whispered, "Just a little more, just a little more." Because she wasn't racing to win, she was racing to prove something only humans understood, that feeling of pushing past what should be possible, of breaking the unbreakable, of touching the edge of death and laughing in its face. Vale's mech, the smallest but most chaotic, suddenly tilted forward as sparks burst from its knees. Yet he used the momentum to perform one last insane stunt. He triggered every thruster in reverse, flipping the mech over in a vertical corkscrew spin, landing with such force that the shockwave blew out every window. In a half-mile radius, and the alien crowd screamed in terror and awe as Vale came out grinning like a maniac, shouting, "Did you see that?" While the mech's AI responded with a gleeful chirp like an animal praising its rider. The Emperor slammed his fist on the console, screaming, "Stop them before they destroy the planet." But the truth was, it was already too late to stop anything. The Mechs were too synced, the humans too determined, the engines too alive with fury. Instead, the technicians simply watched in hopeless anticipation as the finish line approached, glowing neon through the shaking air. And every alien spectator stood up as if pulled by instinct, eyes wide, breath held, waiting to see if the humans would die or triumph or both. Then all three Mechs crossed the final ridge at the exact same moment, their engines roaring like gods awakened, their frames burning so bright they looked like falling stars, and the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded. The humans didn't slow as they approached the finish line. They accelerated harder, pushing the machines past their absolute breaking point, and at the instant they crossed the line, all three Titan-class Mechs detonated into blinding pillars of light, massive explosions erupting skyward like volcanic suns, shock waves rolling through the desert with enough force to flatten mountains, and for a moment the entire world went white. No sound, no sight, no movement. Just the blinding brilliance of engines dying at full glory. Aliens screamed, shields collapsed, sandstorms erupted across the arena, and the Emperor fell back in horror, certain the humans had died in their own madness. But as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the entire galaxy stared in disbelief because standing in the middle of the destruction, silhouettes framed by fire and debris, were Zara, Reed, and Vale, covered in dust and ash, clothes torn, burns on their arms, bruises on their faces, but laughing, like maniacs who had just lived the greatest moment of their lives. And that was when the galaxy finally understood the terrifying, beautiful truth. Humans didn't fear breaking limits, they feared a life without breaking them. Smoke curled upward like wounded ghosts as the last fires faded from the shattered arena. And when the dust finally settled across the molten desert floor, every alien in the stands, every soldier, every scientist, every noble, every civilian, rose slowly in stunned silence as three human figures walked through the smoking crater left by the exploding Mechs, their silhouettes framed by rising heat and drifting sparks, looking less like pilots and more like mythic beings stepping out of a star's heart, and the atmosphere shifted entirely as the galaxy saw something it could not comprehend. Zara limping but smiling, Reed holding his ribs while laughing through the pain, and Vale waving like a kid who just got off a roller coaster. And in that moment fear transformed into awe so powerful it made the alien hearts tremble, because no other species could have survived what the humans had just done, let alone enjoyed it. The Zarthan Emperor stumbled to the edge of the platform, his ornate cloak dragging behind him in the dust, his face pale and shaking, and as the humans approached, every alien general around him took an involuntary step back, as if they were standing before something far beyond their understanding, and the Emperor himself dropped to one knee. Something no Zarthan Emperor had ever done in their 10,000-year lineage. His voice cracking as he whispered, "Forgive us, we believed you reckless, dangerous, unstable. But now we understand. Your madness is not recklessness. It is mastery." And the declaration rippled through the arena like thunder, thousands of aliens gasping as one, their pride shattering like glass, because their highest ruler had bowed to the species they once mocked as primitive deathworlders. Zara froze in shock, Reed blinked twice, Vale whispered, "Bro, is he seriously kneeling?" And the Emperor lowered his head even further, trembling with emotion as he continued, "We designed those Mechs to test our greatest warriors. Yet you unlocked abilities we didn't know existed. You showed courage beyond fear, control beyond instinct, strength beyond limits." And his voice broke completely as he added, "We have never witnessed such harmony between pilot and machine. Never seen anyone risk death with such joy, such purpose, such freedom." And behind him thousands of aliens slowly dropped to their knees, forming a massive sea of bowing figures stretching across the arena like a tide of color. Their heads lowered, hands pressed to the ground, and Zara felt her chest tighten painfully. Not from pride, but from the raw sincerity of the moment. Reed stepped forward awkwardly, lifting his hands, saying, "Hey, guys, stand up. Come on, we were just racing." But none of them moved, because they weren't bowing to the victory. They were bowing to the spirit, the fearlessness, the heart that humans carried into every impossible moment. Children from different species began to run toward them. Tiny legs, small hands, big eyes filled with wonder, surrounding the humans with trusting smiles, asking 1,000 questions at once. "How did you do that? Were you scared? Does it hurt? Can humans teach us?" And Zara knelt to look at them eye to eye, her voice soft as she said, "We weren't trying to be heroes, we just like pushing limits, and the Mechs wanted to run, And that innocence, that honesty, hit the aliens harder than the race itself. The chief Zarthan engineer approached next, shaking violently, clutching the shattered remains of a mech component, tears streaming down his cheeks as he whispered, "You awakened something inside our machines. Something we could not unlock in centuries. The Mechs responded to you, trusted you, loved you." And Reed gently placed a hand on the engineer's shoulder, telling him, "They weren't just machines. They were alive in their own way. You built something amazing. Don't forget that." And those simple words made the engineer collapse into grateful sobs. Meanwhile, the Zarthan media broadcast the scene galaxy-wide, showing billions of viewers the image of 3 humans lifting an emperor back to his feet rather than accepting his bow, and the entire galaxy erupted into discussions, reverence, shock, disbelief, and for the first time ever admiration. Because humans had shown that their strength came not from violence, not from threats, but from an unbreakable will wrapped in kindness and laughter. Diplomats argued over how to classify humans now. Were they allies, protectors, anomalies, or simply a force of nature? And the answer that spread across the networks was the same. Humans are the race that turns war machines into companions, danger into sport, fear into freedom, and that truth reshaped alliances overnight. But inside the arena, Zara looked at her teammates, Reed grinning despite his bruised ribs, Vale proudly holding a melted mech bolt like it was a trophy, and she whispered with emotion in her voice, "We didn't just win a race today. We changed the galaxy." And Reed nodded softly, adding, "And we didn't even mean to." And Vale laughed, which makes it even funnier. And as the 3 of them stood, together under the blazing sun, surrounded by a galaxy kneeling in respect, the moment crystallized into history. A moment future generations would call the day Deathworlders taught Titans how to run as the twin suns sank behind the jagged canyon walls, painting the sky in deep orange and gold. The arena floor had finally stopped shaking, yet a strange, peaceful silence settled over the desert. A silence not born from fear, but from awe, because every alien who had watched the humans race Titan, class Mechs into molten destruction now understood that they had witnessed something far bigger than a competition. They had witnessed the moment the galaxy's oldest beliefs shattered like thin glass. Zara, Reed, and Vale stood together atop the cracked finish line, their faces bruised, their clothes torn, soot smeared across their skin, yet their eyes shining with the same calm confidence they had at the start. And as the breeze carried the last embers of mech fire into the fading light, 1,000 alien leaders approached them slowly, not with weapons, not with caution, but with reverence, forming a circle around them in silent respect. The Zarthan Emperor stepped forward, but this time he did not kneel. This time he bowed his head at eye level, a gesture of equal honor, and in a trembling voice he declared, "Today, the galaxy witnessed not the strength of human machines, but the strength of the human spirit." And the crowd behind him murmured, moved deeply, because it was true. The humans didn't conquer the Mechs. They inspired them, pushed them, freed them. As ambassadors from 50 different species pressed closer, some wiping tears from their eyes, others clutching translation devices with shaking hands. A small Viritan child broke from the crowd, running straight to Zara, her tiny wings fluttering anxiously as she held out a melted piece of mech armor like an offering, whispering, "Can you teach me to be brave like you?" And Zara knelt slowly, pain shooting up her leg, yet her smile soft as she placed the child's small hands over her own and said, "Bravery isn't about strength, it's about heart. And you already have that." And the child burst into grateful sobs, hugging her tightly as other children gathered around, touching the humans' hands like they were touching legends. Meanwhile, soldiers from rival empires, species who once hated each other, stood shoulder to shoulder, united simply by witnessing what humanity had done. They whispered among themselves, "Maybe humans aren't dangerous. Maybe they are exactly what this galaxy was missing." And the idea spread like wildfire through the crowd, that maybe the Deathworlders were not harbingers of chaos, but guardians who thrived where others faltered. As night fully descended, the arena lights flickered back to life, illuminating the humans as they stood on the ruins of the track, and an unexpected sound echoed across the valley. The crowd chanting their names, species after species adding their voices, until the entire desert vibrated with a unified roar, "Humans! Humans! Humans! And for a moment even Reed, who never took anything seriously, felt emotion catch in his throat. The Emperor raised his arm for silence and proclaimed, "From this day forward, let it be known across every star system. The humans who raced our titans are not challengers. They are our allies, our equals, our honored kin." And the declaration triggered a second explosion of cheers, louder than thunder, shaking the air with a force that felt like the heartbeat of a new era. But the humans, true to their nature, looked embarrassed rather than proud. Vale rubbed the back of his neck, muttering, "We just wanted to race?" And Reed laughed. "Yeah, man, we only did this for fun." And Zara rolled her eyes at them both but couldn't hide her smile because she knew, deep inside, they had changed everything without even trying. Moments later, as they walked toward their transport ship under a sky filled with unfamiliar constellations, a holographic broadcast lit up across the galaxy, showing the three of them silhouetted against the burning wreckage of the Titan Mechs. And beneath the image appeared a message that historians would remember forever. The day humans raced the god machines and won the galaxy's respect. And as the ship ascended through the shimmering night, engines humming softly, Reed looked out the window at the glowing arena below, thousands of aliens waving tiny lights like stars, and he whispered, "They're really cheering for us?" And Vale grinned. "Of course they are. We're insane. And they love it." Zara rested her head against the cold glass, watching the world grow smaller beneath them, and she felt a quiet warmth in her chest, the rare kind. The kind that whispers you just did something that will outlive you. Because that day, the universe didn't just learn about human courage or human madness. It learned the most important truth of all. Humans never saw limits. They saw possibilities. And when given a challenge meant to intimidate them, they didn't fear it. They raced it,